I'm Martin, and I'm next to Button Cove here in the background, and behind me is number 1 covered slipway, South Yard, with a statue. They call him King Billy. He's not a statue, he's a warship figurehead. Or to put it more politely, he's a copy, because the original is so ancient it is now exhibited with other warship figureheads in the Box Heritage Centre here in Plymouth, which has just opened recently. Now, the original King Billy, King William of Orange with his wife Mary Stuart, they came across because the English government didn't want another Catholic king after Charles II and James II, so they invited Mary Stuart, who was a Protestant married to a good Protestant leader of Holland. So they came across, and shortly afterwards the yard started to be developed. But that King Billy is actually a copy warship figurehead of the king who was in the early 19th century, who had a whole career in the Royal Navy before he became king, so hence they remember him. And over there is the Royal William Victualling Yard, named after King Billy of the early 19th century. But bringing the story up to date, South Yard has been sort of privatised and changed, not ownership, but certainly what it does. But luckily, number 1 covered slipway is rented by Will Sterling and Son. He's a young boat builder and repairer in wood. So it's keeping the tradition alive 300 years. Now, I just sung a song, WREN Bride. It's pretty rude, but there again, Matlows and Dockyardies were like that. That song is probably put together sometime between the wars, First, Second World War. And it's really a song about rabbiting. I mean, I'm a Janner, I was born in the Royal Naval Hospital, Stonehouse, but people who are Plymothian should know that a Janner is Plymouth born and bred, and Janners liked to have their crude jokes. So we know the song is from before the Second World War, because it mentions a bloke from the Hood shouted, "Blimey, I could." Well, HMS Hood went down in 1940 during the war. So the other things mentioned were right. We did have wrens before the war, and of course the ordinary seamen had to make fun of the pussers and the officers wherever they could, and they were being rather rude about the lady. But my aged aunts, one's 93, one's 91, they're still alive. 93-year-old can vaguely remember that song. When I sang it a while back, she looked at me and looked at her sister, then a smile came out, and I said, "Have you come across that?" And she nodded. So the song is known in certain places even today in Plymouth and in Devonport.
And what is a rabbit?
Rabbiting, instead of going hunting for a rabbit for the stew, rabbiting is nicking from the dockyard, because in the olden days, wooden shipbuilding, wooden repair, the dockyard workers were allowed offcuts. When they weren't very well paid, offcuts could be helpful for cooking and heating wood. But it became, shall we say, a tradition of the old dockyardies as the years rolled by to nick anything that seemed to be not being used. So rabbiting in dockyard terms mean, well, sort of taking something which no one seems to own. There's a lovely story, maybe not true, but the dockyard police were having a crackdown on rabbiting a few years back, and Saturday all the dockyard workers poured out and they weren't carrying anything, but this old chap was walking around with a MOD wheelbarrow, nothing in it. The story I've got is A few weeks later, there were half a dozen MOD wheelbarrows for sale in a car boot sale. Stories like that, true or not, that's the heritage of Plymouth Dockyard and Devonport.
Thank you very much.